Hello friends, today's topic of discussion is cinema historical sources in Rajasthan. In the earlier lecture on the similar theme, we talked about how cinema is very important from the point of view of society, and how many of them they have seen that cinema is some kind of a mirror of society. Many of the films which have been made, how they are in a way concerned with the society. And at the same time, we also see that some kind of changes have also come in the history writing, and a number of sources they have also increased, in that sense that earlier there was a lot of focus on the archival material only, but in times to come we find that there is a lot of focus on the oral sources. And also we find that some of the scholars they have talked about films as a source of historical inquiry, and many of the universities they are offering courses on cinema. And we also find that relations between the history and cinema they have also been talked about by some of the scholars. In that particular framework, we find that many of the films which have been made in Rajasthan, how they are also trying to reflect the culture as well as the history of Rajasthan, and so they have been very, very important from that particular perspective. Then we have also seen that some of the scholars how they have tried to see films and their relations with history. We talked about Gaston Robbers, we talked about Mark Farrow, we also talked about Pierre Sorlin, and how all of them in their own ways have tried to see the relations between history as well as society. And from that point of view, they have also seen that how cinema can also be used as a source of historical inquiry. So in that sense, when scholars they have talked about the various kinds of aspects, for example, Mark Farrow talked about history in that sense, where you can see it as an agent of cinema, as an agent of history or as a source of history. He tried to determine that. So all these kinds of aspects they were being talked about, and how historians they have also tried to in a way incorporate some of the aspects which are there in the films in their own historical studies as well. And some kind of a connection which is there between the cinema and the society has also been talked about by the scholars. And when one is talking about history and the character of history, we find that objectivity and subjectivity, both of them they are there, and how they are being linked to each other. But we also find that objectivity in history is not absolute, but it is relative in nature, and how the commitment of a historian and the impact of the society on him, they determine his viewpoint and approach towards the sources of history. So in the ordinary sense also, we find that the mentality, nature, the interest, habit of a historian, they play an important role in the subject selection, in the research analysis, and the writing as well. So in that sense, when one is trying to see history, one also has to see historian as well, the background of the historian, the mentality and the interest, as well as the kind of position which he has in the society, because definitely as a member of the society he will be influenced by the society as well. And when it is also very obvious that in spite of all the precautions, he can't become a neutral observer, and he will have some kind of historical eyesight and a viewpoint, whether he is conscious of it or he is not. So in that sense, we find that how the historians, as a product of the society, they are being influenced by what is happening around them, and they just cannot be objective all the time, because they all sorts of subjectivities which are there in the society, they will also be influenced by them. And when they are influenced by such kind of subjectivities, then their viewpoint, their ideas, they also will be affected. And when one is talking about the kind of films which were made at that point of time, we find that many of the films which were being shot in Rajasthan, as our topic relates to the historical sources, as well as many of the films which were made in Rajasthan. We find that Guide in 1965, directed by Vijay Anand, which was based on the critically acclaimed novel Guide by R.K. Narayan, is widely considered to be one of the masterpieces of the Indian film industry, and it was also shot in Rajasthan as well. And when you also talk about the Rajasthani films, which we find that not many Rajasthani films have been made, or for that matter they have not been all that popular, the way the regional films in Bengal, for that matter, or we also find the regional cinema of Maharashtra Marathi films, or many of the film industries which are operating in South India, and how these film industries they have become bigger and bigger over a period of time. But many of the Hindi films, for that matter, or some of the English films, they have also been shot in Rajasthan, or they have tried to capture the culture of Rajasthan. Rudali was one of them, directed by Kalpana Lajmi, and it was based on the story written by Mahashweta Devi. And this film was set in a small village in Rajasthan, and the title refers a custom in certain parts of Rajasthan where women of lower caste, they are being hired as professional mourners on the demise of upper caste men. So we find that this film basically was trying to convey about a particular kind of a community, and how the women from that particular community, they perform that kind of a role where they are being shown as professional mourners. And when the people of the upper caste or the upper caste men, those who died, then these women, they were performing the role of mourners by going to their homes. And we find that such kind of customs, they were very, very regressive, or for that matter, they were very exploitative from the point of view of women, those who had to perform such kind of duties. And these women, they were referred to as Rudali, which was in a way translated as women weepers. And their profession is to publicly express the sorrow of the family members who are not allowed to exhibit emotions due to the social status. So we find that even the family relations, where people, they felt for a family member, they were not being allowed to express their opinion in public. So they were not allowed to exhibit them in that sense, because they belong to higher status. So such kind of thing was in a way being covered by these weepers, those who were engaged in such kind of activities. We also find there was another film called Tarpan, directed by K. Bikram Singh in 1994, and the film has the setting of 1940s in a fictitious village in Shekhawati region in Rajasthan, where no girl child survives beyond the age of 7. And how the film also dealt with the larger issues of communalism in the caste system through the 4 interrelated stories. So we find that filmmakers, they were quite aware about such kind of themes, and they were trying to in a way show the concerns of their times by situating them in a particular kind of a context. In that series, we find that there was a film called Lekin in 1991, which was loosely based on a short story by Rabindranath Tagore, and it was directed by Hindi lyricist Gulzar, and the film was produced by Lata Mangeshkar, whose rendition of the song Yara Seeli Seeli won the 1991 National Film Award for the best female playback singer. So we find that this particular film, Lekin, it had a number of songs which became very, very popular, and how the film songs, they have been integral to the Hindi films, or for that matter Indian cinema, where you find that songs, they have been incorporated in almost all the films which have been made, not only in Hindi but many other regional languages as well. So in this particular film, which we find that it is again set in Rajasthan, and which gives something in common with Rudali when we try to compare it. And this film was again considered to be an offbeat film, which was set in Rajasthan, that was released around the same time, and also featured Dimple Kapadia and Amjad Khan, because Dimple Kapadia also played the role of Rudali in the film Rudali in 1993, which was. And we find that the desert of Rajasthan again itself is a character in this particular film, and this film is very attractive in the context of the portrayal of time and the destiny. And it is also a film which is trying to indicate the illusions and the artifices. Apart from that, we also have seen that other films which have also been made in Rajasthan, for example Door, which was made in 2006, it was written and directed by Nagesh Kukunur, and it is a remake of a Malayalam film which was made in 2004, as you can see on the screen as well. And how the story was dealing with the two women who come from the divergent background, and how destiny brings them together, and the accidental murder of the husband of one, where she has to seek the pardon from another, is the highlight of the film. And we see that how Gul Panang, who played the role of other woman who comes to a village where she has to seek forgiveness from the other woman whose husband had died in another country. So unless she gets the pardon from this particular woman, then her husband will not be pardoned. So that was the kind of a situation which was there. And when Aisha Takia, who played the role of the woman whose husband has been murdered, realizes that how this woman Gul Panang had befriended her, and she feels that she had been befriended because she wanted her to sign that letter where she was giving that kind of forgiveness. So all this kind of an interaction between two women, those who were from diverse background, those who were not connected with each other in any manner, and how the situation of the elders of the family, the in-laws, how their behavior towards their own daughter-in-law changes once they know that their son has died. So that again is a kind of concern for the women, those who are many a times dependent on their in-laws or other family members. So this film is trying to raise certain concerns within the framework of women, and at the same time the kind of background which is shown in this particular film is also concerning the Rajasthan and its portrayal. Then we also find other films, for example Zubaida, which was made in 2001, which was directed by Sham Benegal and written by Khalid Mohammed. And the film is based on the life of ill-fated actor Zubaida Begum, who married Harwant Singh of Jodhpur, and it was considered as the part of Muslim trilogy by some of the scholars like Mammo and Sardari Begum were the other two films. And it is also my view that it is an inaccurate observation in that sense that only the Muslim characters does not make all these films as Muslim trilogy, because if you see the kind of ideas which are there in these films, they are more comparatively universal in nature. And for example, when we talk about Zubaida, then we find that how many of the characters they were Hindu. So it does not mean that if the central figure in this particular film was Muslim, or the kind of background initially was Muslim, then it was some sort of a Muslim trilogy in that sense. But it has been seen by some of the experts in that particular framework. And we find that such kind of portrayal of a reality in these films, because Sham Benegal made this film in a manner in which it cannot be classified as the kind of parallel cinema which he was directing earlier. This film was some kind of a blend of the parallel cinema as well as the mainstream films as well, where we find that the actors and the actresses, those who worked in this particular film, they were from the commercial sector. And at the same time we also see that the various kinds of tropes which were used by Benegal, they were in the commercial framework as well. We also find that there were other films which were based, for example Bhavandar was based on a true story of Bhamari Devi, a rape victim from Rajasthan, and it shows the personal suffering of that victim in Rajasthan and the kind of public disgrace she has to undergo, the kind of legal injustice that she went through and while pursuing justice in the Indian courts. So we find that this kind of an exploitation of women, this kind of a personal suffering and the public disgrace, and the way the Indian judicial system, where you will have to wait a lot of time so that you are able to secure some kind of a justice. So all this is being shown in this particular film, and this film has some kind of a universal theme, because the people, those who have undergone all this kind of pain or suffering in India, or for that matter in other parts of the world, then they will be able to identify with this kind of with these kinds of ideas. So in that sense we find that this particular film had universal theme, and the way the way characterizations which have been done in this particular film, and was also very remarkable in that sense that it was trying to convey the concerns of the women. Then we also find that Mani Kaul made a film called Duvidha in 1973, which was set in the rural Rajasthan and based on story of Vijaydan Detha, and which was a very popular folk tale from Rajasthan. And we find that this was shot in the village Borunda in Tehsil Bilara, Jodhpur district, village of the author Vijaydan Detha or Bijji. So we find that Duvidha, when this particular film was shot, the music was given by the folk musicians of Rajasthan, Ramzan Hammu, Latif and Saki Khan. And later we find that Amol Palekar made a film called Paheli in 2005, which was based on the same story of Vijaydan Detha and uses the famous Rajasthani art of puppetry to narrate the film. So we find that when such kind of films they are being made, then they are not only communicating the folk tales of that particular region or the tales of that particular region, but at the same time they are also trying to communicate the various kinds of arts and crafts which are available. For example, when you talk about the Rajasthani puppetry which was shown in this film, then we are trying to communicate the culture of Rajasthan in a certain manner. Then we also find that some of the films, they were trying to communicate the kinds of features which are associated with the Rajasthan history or culture. One of them was Eklavya Royal Guard, which was made in 2007. It was directed by Vidhu Vinod Chopra and it was shot at Devigarh and in Udaipur in Rajasthan. And it shows the grandeur of the Havelis and the opulence of the aristocratic class of Rajasthan in this particular film, and the question of loyalty and the dedication is also being shown. So we find that such kind of portrayals, for example this particular film where it was dealing with some kind of a culture of the Rajputs or the people, those who were from the upper section of the society, and how the grandeur of the people, those who are living in those who are from the aristocratic class, those who are from the nobility in that sense, was quite evident in this particular film. And how the people, those who are associated with them, how they see them, how they are dedicated and loyal towards them, how they are ready to share their own life so that the people with whom they are in a way linked in this manner, or those who are being served by them, they are not affected in any negative manner. So all such kind of ideas, they were being shown in this particular film. We also find that some of the films of this time, many times we find that they have been seen as semi-historical in nature, and Jodha Akbar was one. It was being seen in the framework of a semi-historical film, and Ashutosh Govarikar shot the film at Karjat, and the questions regarding the authenticity of Jodhabai has been raised by many of the scholars, that Akbar did not have any wife who was referred to as Jodhabai, because the only Jodhpur princess who was married to Jahangir, who was the son of Akbar. So in that sense, the authenticity of Jodhabai has been questioned in this particular film, and the way the film is trying to communicate or take the story, many of the elements has been questioned as fictional by some of the scholars. We also find that a film called Maharana Pratap, First Freedom Fighter, is a film which was made in 2012, which was based on Maharana Pratap Singh of Mewar, and this film was directed and produced by Dr. Pradeep Kumawat from Udaipur. We also find that a number of films which were being shot in Rajasthan, for example Octopussy, directed by John Glenn and featuring famous James Bond, was shot in Udaipur. Similarly, Warrior, a film by British Indian filmmaker Asif Kapadia, had acted Irfan Khan as a warrior in the feudal Rajasthan who attempts to give up sword. And in this particular film we find the way Irfan made acting easier, and it does not mean that he was not good in so many other films. The way he has acted in other films as well, he has been very quite impressive. So in this particular film as well, we find that he was very, very impressive. Then we have seen that there were so many other films which have also been shot in Rajasthan. For example, Best Exotic Marigold Hotel was a British film by John Madden, which was shot in the cities of Jaipur and Udaipur. And we find that the way these places where these films they were being shown, we find that how the tourism of these particular places, they also got a boost. And there was another film, Darjeeling Limited, in 2007, which was shot in Jodhpur, and some shots were in Udaipur too, the way they were being filmed there. So we find that such kind of portrayals, such kind of films which have been made and they were being shot in many regions of Rajasthan has also made these regions popular, because when tourists come, they also want to visit these kinds of areas where films they have been shot. Then we also find that how Sonar Kela in 1974 by Satyajit Ray was shot in the Jaisalmer, and this film was also talking about the beauty and the grandeur. And then again Lamhe by Yash Chopra, it was the last film that Rahi Masoom Raza scripted as a writer. And then I Am Kalam by Neel Madhav Panda revolves around a poor Rajasthani boy. So we find that themes they have been taken from Rajasthan, for that matter, or films they are being shot in Rajasthan. And all these films, they are not trying to in a way narrate the scenic beauty of Rajasthan only, but at the same time the cultural practices which are quite common in Rajasthan, they are also being shown in these films. And many times we find that films they have been quite ahead of their times. For example, Lamhe was considered to be one of the films which was considered to be far ahead of its time in the framework of the theme as well as the treatment. Then we also find that many other popular films like Hum Saath Saath Hain by Suraj Bhatt was also shot in the film city as well as in the villages of the Rajasthan state. And Hum Dil De Chuke Sanam, again this film was shot through Gujarat and Rajasthan border, and this region was also showcasing the Rajasthani culture as well. So these kinds of films which have been very, very popular, they have been shot in Rajasthan, and they have also shown the culture of Rajasthan in their own way. Apart from that, we have also seen a film by Dev Benegal, Road movie, which began in 2004, and how it was being shot in the desert areas in the Kutch district of Gujarat and Jaisalmer in Rajasthan. Then we have seen that other films like Nanne Jaisalmer by Sameer Karnik, it is showing the desert beauty of Rajasthan, and Camel Safari in 2013, which was a Malayalam film by Jairaj, tells a love story on the background of Rajasthan. And the filming of the Camel Safari, it began in the Pushkar Fair in Rajasthan, and then it was being shot in Rajasthan extensively. Then some of the films, they are not only showing the scenic beauty of Rajasthan, but at the same time they are talking about some kinds of concerns which are there in the society. They are trying to communicate the feudal and the caste politics as well. Gulami was one, which was directed by J.P. Datta, and Amitabh Bachchan was the narrator of this film, and how it focuses on the caste and the feudal system in Rajasthan. When one is talking about the films which have been shot in Rajasthan, which are showing the geographical beauty of Rajasthan, it does not mean that they are not trying to communicate the other ideas. Rather, the topography of Rajasthan, the hardships of the people in the difficult kind of terrain, which is desert, that is also being communicated through these films. Then other films like Gulal, directed by Anurag Kashyap, they also explore various themes like the quest for power and the pursuit of legitimacy, the various kinds of injustices which are there in the society, and the pretense of the powerful that they are not directly in a way concerned with those kinds of things which are happening in the society. And this film became very popular from that point of view, that it was trying to show not only the caste politics or the power machinery, but at the same time this film was also concerned with the student politics, the way it was playing, and how it did not only remain confined to the student politics, but it was concerned with the higher level of politics as well. And when we talk about cinema, then we also talk about the various kinds of methods by which one can control cinema, and censorship is one of them, and how cinema used in a way as an instrument of propaganda. So censorship machinery in a way tries to control cinema from that point of view, that it may not become some kind of an instrument of propaganda. And we find the significance of cinema in that sense, that how the censorship machinery is very relevant in that point of view. And during the colonial period this happened quite often, that because the censorship was political in nature, and how they viewed that the cinema was some kind of a challenge to their colonial hegemony, and any kind of a nationalist aspiration was crushed through the censorship. So one of our concerns largely is to raise a number of theoretical and the practical questions which are associated with the use of cinema as a source of history writing, that when one is writing about history, so how cinema can be used as a source of history writing within the confines of the Indian historiography, because many a times scholars, they have tried to see cinema only in the framework of entertainment. So cinema is not only entertainment in that sense, but rather larger important concerns, they are also connected with films. And we have to see that how the possibility of the use of cinema as a raw material of history of that particular era or that specific era can also be undertaken. And from that point of view, when one is trying to study films or cinema to understand the socio-economic, political and the cultural reality of those times, and then not only understanding that, but also trying to draw certain lessons by understanding them, and also in a way to see films of those times and to position those films in a particular historical and socio-cultural context, because those films, they have not been made in vacuum, rather they are part of a particular kind of a pattern, and this kind of a pattern is being evident in the cinema. So we have to see in this particular framework, we have to realize that how cinema definitely is playing an important role in that sense, that how cinema has also been recognized at an academic level where it is being studied as an academic discipline, and how students, they are being taught in various universities where about the courses which are based on films, and not only students of literature, that Hindi or for that matter English and other forms of literature, they are trying to study cinema, but cinema is also being studied by historians and political scientists, because it is not only concerned with media, it is more a concern of the human society. So from that point of view, the political scientists, historians and others for that matter, they have tried to study films in a particular framework. They have tried to find some kind of context with which they can relate. So my concern in this particular lecture is in a way to communicate this kind of an idea, that how cinema and history are in a way related, and how there's some kind of an exchange is happening between them. And many of the films of Rajasthan, how they have tried to portray the culture or the characteristics of that particular manner in their own way. Not only Hindi, but we find that a number of regional films, they also have shot in Rajasthan, and a number of films which are not made in India, European films, as I tried to communicate in the lecture, that so many European films, they have also been shot in Rajasthan. So all of them, they are trying to capture some or the other reality of Rajasthan in a manner, and they are trying to show not only the scenic beauty, but as well as the culture of Rajasthan in their own way. So with this, I'd like to end the discussion. Thank you very much.